It's not something that anybody wants to see. Tyreek Hill loaded on a cart, went at the Jets sideline.
The moment Tyreek Hill's mother kissed his forehead on the field, the entire NFL world froze. This wasn't just another injury, it was a nightmare unfolding live. But what happened next changed everything, and it left fans asking, is this the end of the Cheetah? When hope turned to horror. Imagine 65,000 fans packed inside Hard Rock Stadium on September 29, 2025. The Miami night sky buzzed with playoff-like electricity, even though it was only week 4 of the NFL season. The Miami Dolphins, winless at 0-3, were clinging to hope against their bitter AFC East rival, the New York Jets. This wasn't just another football game. It was a desperate attempt to save a season spiraling out of control, a chance to prove they still belonged in the playoff conversation. But in the blink of an eye, that hope turned into horror. A single play, just 10 yards of field, one sideline catch, left the entire NFL world speechless. The moment Tyreek Hill's leg bent in a way no leg should ever bend, football stopped, and millions who watched it live will never forget the sight. This is the story of the night the Cheetah fell, the night Tyreek Hill's injury left fans shocked, silent, and praying he could ever play again. The Dolphins had stumbled out of the gate that year, dropping their first 3 games despite a roster packed with stars. The critics were loud. Was Tua Tagovailoa regressing? Was head coach Mike McDaniel losing his magic? Could Miami's expensive experiment of speed, and more speed really work in the brutal grind of the NFL season? Yet this Monday night football clash against the New York Jets felt like an opportunity for redemption. National spotlight, rivalry energy, a chance to rewrite the headlines. The crowd was alive from the opening kickoff. Every cheer, every groan, every chant carried the weight of a fan base desperate to believe again. Tyreek Hill, the Dolphins' crown jewel, the man they nicknamed Cheetah, was the centerpiece of that hope, and he was delivering. By halftime, Hill had already hauled in multiple key catches. His final stat line before disaster struck would show 6 receptions for 67 yards. But it wasn't just the numbers, it was the way he tilted the field, the way every Jets defender had to backpedal when he lined up wide. Every time Tua dropped back, the cameras cut to Hill, because in Miami's offense, all roads led to him.
I'll give you one look here. It's an uncomfortable looking injury here. There's that left leg right there. As he landed. Katie George is right on the spot there. Katie?
Yeah, Chris.
It was the third quarter. Miami clinging to momentum in what had been a back-and-forth battle. Facing a crucial third down near the sideline, Tua looked left and found his most reliable weapon, Tyreek Hill. Hill snatched the ball cleanly, pivoted toward the sideline, and tried to plant his left foot, the kind of athletic, razor-sharp move he had made thousands of times in his career. But this time, it didn't go as planned. Jets defender Malachi Moore closed in, diving low. At the exact moment Hill's cleat dug into the turf, Moore's body struck. The result was that physics went wrong. Hill's left leg twisted grotesquely, hyperextending backward while also bowing outward. Analysts later described it as bending in directions legs are not meant to bend. The human body has natural limits. Knees are supposed to flex forward and back, not sideways like a door hinge. But on this play, Hill's knee rotated, shifted, and collapsed in a way that left even seasoned broadcasters gasping. Within a second, Hill was on the turf, not rolling around, not trying to get up, but clutching his knee, motionless, his face twisted in agony. Hard Rock Stadium, known for deafening roars, went quiet. Tens of thousands of fans held their breath, realizing they had just seen something serious. Players from both sidelines immediately waved for trainer. Dolphins staff sprinted to their star receiver. In a rare and powerful gesture, even Jets medical staff rushed across the field to help stabilize Hill's leg, an unspoken acknowledgement that football rivalries mean nothing when a man's career is on the line.
Both staffs got to Tyreek Hill immediately. They cut off his cleat. His mom was able to come down to the field. She bent down, gave him a kiss on his forehead.
That image, Tyreek's mother kissing him on the forehead as trainers held his leg in place, spread across social media almost instantly. It captured the human cost of what millions had just seen on TV. ESPN's cameras stayed locked on Hill, and for several minutes the broadcast team struggled to fill the silence. Their voices wavered, knowing millions of viewers were watching a career possibly end in real time. When Hill was finally placed into an air cast, the crowd rose in a standing ovation. Tears streamed down the faces of fans in Dolphins jerseys. Some clasped their hands in prayer, others just stared, stunned. Within minutes, clips of the play flooded social media platforms. One slowed-down angle zoomed in on the unnatural bend of Hill's leg with the chilling caption, "Prayers to Tyreek Hill. His leg is bent the completely wrong way. He will definitely be out for the season." Another video captured the broadcast booth's raw reaction, gasps, and a stunned pause before the words, "Prayers up for Tyreek Hill." Fans immediately created the hashtag #PrayForTyreek, which began trending globally. globally. Tweets poured in. That looked awful, hoping it's not as bad as it seems. Others were more blunt. Season's over for the Cheetah. In just a few hours, millions of people had seen the clip. By the next morning, it was the most watched NFL injury video of the year. On the field, the Dolphins were shaken. Tua Tagovailoa, who had built his chemistry with Hill into one of the league's most dangerous connections, looked on with visible emotion. Other teammates knelt in prayer circles, while some placed a hand on Hill's shoulder before he was lifted onto the cart. The Jets, fierce rivals who had come to Miami looking to spoil the night, dropped their competitive fire at that moment. Players like Malachi Moore, the defender who made the tackle, stood back with a stunned expression, realizing the role he had played in the catastrophic moment. Even fans of the opposing Jets joined in applause as Hill was wheeled away. Rivalries disappear when human vulnerability takes center stage. As the cart began to roll off the field, Tyreek Hill, still grimacing in pain, did something that added yet another layer of emotion to the night. He lifted his hand and waved to the crowd. Some fans swore they even heard him shout, "Yes!" in a defiant, almost eerie tone. To some, it was vintage Tyreek, always a showman, always resilient, refusing to let the injury define him in that moment. To others, it was haunting, as if he knew this could be the last time he waved to the Dolphins, faithful as the player they knew him to be. By the time the Dolphins sealed a narrow 27-21 victory, the win felt meaningless. The defining image of the night wasn't Tua's touchdown pass or the defense's late stop. It was Tyreek Hill, strapped into a cart, waving bravely through tears, while an entire stadium stood in stunned silence. The game was supposed to reignite Miami's season. Instead, it became the night the NFL froze, the night when the fastest man in football, the Cheetah, was stopped not by a defender but by the cruel twist of fate and the fragility of the human body, the medical reality, and the long road back. When fans saw Tyreek Hill's leg buckle on that sideline catch, the instinctive reaction was horror. But what most people didn't realize at that moment was just how catastrophic an injury like this can be, not only for a football career, but for someone's basic ability to walk, run, and live without pain. As doctors and medical experts began analyzing the footage frame by frame, it became clear. This wasn't just a sprain. It wasn't just a bad twist. Tyreek Hill had suffered one of the most feared injuries in all of sports, a dislocated knee. Within hours of the Dolphins' victory, NFL insiders like Adam Schefter were already reporting the initial fear, a dislocated knee, pending further evaluation. By the next morning, that diagnosis was confirmed by team doctors and reported widely. A knee dislocation is far more serious than the more common ACL tear. It means the bones of the knee, the femur and tibia, were forced out of alignment, usually destroying multiple ligaments in the process. According to early medical notes, Hill's injury was classified as a multi-ligament dislocation, with high suspicion of damage to both the ACL and PCL, as well as the posterolateral corner, a group of stabilizing structures on the outside of the knee. One of the most compelling analyses came from Dr. Brian Sutterer, a physician known for breaking down sports injuries. Watching the footage in slow motion, his concern was immediate. Dr. Sutterer explained that the disaster began with Hill's foot plant. Instead of bending naturally, his knee locked out straight. At the exact moment of impact, the force drove his leg backward and outward. This wasn't just a ligament tear. This was the knee joint itself failing. What makes this type of injury terrifying isn't just the ligaments, it's what sits behind them. Behind the knee runs the popliteal artery, a major blood vessel that supplies the lower leg and foot. Just millimeters away are the popliteal vein and the common peroneal nerve, which controls movement and sensation in the lower leg. If the artery is damaged and blood flow is cut off for too long, the consequences can be catastrophic, sometimes leading to amputation. That's why immediate medical intervention is critical. Fortunately, Dolphins trainers acted with precision. They quickly immobilized Hill's leg with an air cast, reduced the joint into proper alignment, and rushed him to a local hospital for vascular imaging. Time was muscle, time was tissue, and they didn't waste a second. The expected road ahead? Surgery almost certainly. In fact, multiple surgeries. Most dislocations of this nature require reconstruction of the ACL, PCL, and often the posterolateral corner. Some require staged surgeries, stabilizing one structure, then returning later for additional repair once swelling subsides. Recovery data and NFL precedent suggest 9-12 months at minimum, and often closer to 18 months before a player regains full confidence and speed. For a 31-year-old wide receiver whose game is built on explosiveness, that timeline casts serious doubt on whether Tyreek Hill will ever be the same. To understand what's next for Hill, we need to look at those who came before him, the men who stared at the same darkness, endured the same surgeries and rehab, and somehow made it back. Their stories reveal both the hope and the harsh reality of what lies ahead for the Cheetah. Perhaps the most famous recent case is Teddy Bridgewater. In August 2016, the Minnesota Vikings quarterback suffered a non-contact knee dislocation so severe that his his surgeon described it as mangled. Bridgewater tore his ACL, damaged his PCL, and even risked vascular complications. Teammates reportedly vomited on the field after seeing his leg. Many believed his career was over, but Teddy refused to quit. He endured 2 surgeries, spent 10 months in grueling rehab, and slowly regained the ability to run, cut, and throw. By June 2017, he was cleared for contact. By November, he was back on the field, taking snaps in an NFL game. His career was never the same superstar trajectory, but he carved out a role as a respected starter and backup across multiple teams, even earning a Pro Bowl nod. Bridgewater's lesson for Tyreek Hill: even the most catastrophic injuries can be overcome, but the road is long, the scars permanent, and the player who returns may never fully be the same. If you want to talk about shock, look back to January 2003, when Miami Hurricanes running back Willis McGahee suffered a gruesome knee dislocation during the Fiesta Bowl. His leg bent backward at an unnatural angle, tearing multiple ligaments and fracturing his fibula. Draft experts said his NFL dreams were dead. Instead, he underwent 3 surgeries and sat out his rookie year. But in 2004, he shocked the football world by rushing for over 1,100 yards with the Buffalo Bills. He went on to play 9 seasons, amassing more than 8,000 career rushing yards. For Hill, McGahee's story shows that even when a leg bends in ways that look impossible to come back from, the body can heal if the mind is willing to endure the torture of rehab. Not every story is triumphant. In 2005, Vikings quarterback Dante Culpepper suffered a dislocated knee with torn ACL, PCL, and MCL during a sack against the Packers. He underwent multiple surgeries and returned the following season with the Dolphins, but he was never the same. His mobility was gone, his mechanics altered, and his prime was cut short. For Hill, Culpepper's decline is a cautionary tale. Sometimes, even with successful surgeries, the explosiveness simply never comes back. Cleveland Browns running back Nick Chubb suffered a horrifying dislocated knee against the Steelers in 2023, tearing his ACL, MCL, and meniscus. It was his second major knee injury, and fans feared it would end his career. But Chubb embraced a 20-month rehab process, grinding through setbacks and dark days with the support of his family. By summer 2025, he was back on the practice field with the Houston Texans, aiming for a full comeback. Chubb's story is perhaps the most relevant for Hill. Both are modern stars. Both suffered dislocations with multi-ligament tears, and both faced long roads back. Chubb's progress shows that recovery is possible, but it takes nearly 2 years. So what does all of this mean for Tyreek Hill? At 31, Hill is older than Bridgewater was at 23, McGahee at 20, or many of the other comeback stories. Recovery is harder on older bodies, and regaining elite explosiveness becomes more difficult. Hill's game is built on speed and quick cuts. Unlike a quarterback who can adjust mechanics or a power back who can rely on strength, Hill's entire identity is acceleration. Even a 5% decline could change his career trajectory. Until now, Hill has been remarkably durable. For nearly a decade, he had been one of the NFL's most durable stars. From 2016 to 2024, he missed just 7 regular season games. Remarkable longevity for a player built on speed. But cracks had started to show. Hamstring pulls in 2020, a rolled ankle in 2023, a nagging wrist ligament tear in 2024 that required not 1 but 2 surgeries in 2025. Every athlete who has faced this injury talks about the psychological war. Bridgewater admitted to crying during rehab milestones. Chubb spoke of dark days where he questioned if it was worth it. McGahee leaned on doubters as fuel. For Tyreek Hill, this battle may be the toughest yet. Can he endure the endless hours of rehab? Can he trust his knee again? Can he find motivation at this stage of his career? And most importantly, can he accept a version of himself that might never again be the fastest? Man alive? The fallout and what comes next. When Tyreek Hill went down, it wasn't just the Dolphins who felt the impact. It wasn't just Miami fans, or even just the NFL world. His injury sent shockwaves through every layer of football, from the Dolphins locker room to fantasy football leagues, from Las Vegas betting markets to the millions of kids who wore #10 jerseys dreaming of being the Cheetah one day. This was more than just a football injury. This was a cultural moment, one that will shape Miami's season, the NFL's narrative, and even Hill's legacy for years to come. The Miami Dolphins had built their entire offensive identity around speed. Tua Tagovailoa's quick release, Jalen Waddle's intermediate routes, and Tyreek Hill's deep ball threat formed one of the NFL's most explosive units. Without Hill, that blueprint crumbles. Hill's 6 catches for 67 yards before the injury already accounted for nearly a quarter of Miami's passing offense that night. Extrapolated over a season, losing him strips away 600+ yards of production. Head coach Mike McDaniel was blunt in his post-game comments. You don't replace Tyreek Hill, you adjust, you survive. For Tua, the blow is personal. Their chemistry had transformed his career. Without Hill, defenses can key on Waddle, blitz more freely, and shrink the field. What was once Miami's greatest weapon, vertical speed, has now become its greatest vulnerability. At 1-3, Miami already faced an uphill battle. With Hill sidelined, odds makers immediately slashed the Dolphins' playoff chances. Their odds dropped from plus 400 to plus 1,200 overnight to win the AFC East. Super Bowl hopes fading fast. For a franchise that invested nearly $120 million in Hill and traded multiple first-round picks to acquire him, this wasn't just a medical setback, it was a financial earthquake. In the fantasy football world, Tyreek Hill wasn't just another player, he was a league winner. Drafted in the first round across millions of leagues, his weekly production swung matchups. When the footage hit, fantasy managers everywhere scrambled. Social media exploded with posts like, "Just lost my season. Thanks Tyreek," and "Bro, I spent my #3 pick on Hill. It's over." Waiver wires were flooded with desperate claims for Waddle, Cedric Wilson Jr., and even practice squad receivers. It was chaos, and proof that Hill's value extended far beyond the Dolphins' playbook. Sportsbooks took a direct hit. Hill's injury shifted live odds during this Dolphins-Jets game itself. Before his exit, Miami was a minus 150 favorite. Afterward, the line flipped, with the Jets briefly favored in the fourth quarter. Season-long props, like Hill's chase for another 700-yard campaign, were voided. Bettors who had wagered on Dolphins futures saw their tickets plummet in value. For Las Vegas and online books, this injury was more than news. It was a financial tremor that altered millions of dollars in action overnight. The way media outlets covered Hill's injury reveals the duality of modern sports coverage. ESPN stayed somber, with broadcasters describing it as an uncomfortable-looking injury and letting long silences speak louder than words. Meanwhile, tabloids and social media outlets leaned into shock. Headlines screamed, "Leg bends the wrong way. Tyreek Hill carted off. Gruesome injury leaves fans in tears," and "Cheetah's season over." On platforms like YouTube and TikTok, slow-motion replays garnered millions of views within 24 hours. Reaction channels uploaded compilations of fans gasping at the footage. The injury wasn't just an event, it was a content machine. No moment captures the modern NFL like the social media aftermath. Within minutes, Tyreek Hill's name was trending worldwide. Hashtags like #PrayForTyreek and #CheetahStrong flooded timelines. Memes emerged almost instantly, some supportive, others darkly humorous, a reflection of internet culture's split personality. Celebrities from LeBron James to Odell Beckham Jr. posted prayers. On TikTok, fans stitched together tributes with clips of Hill's greatest plays set to somber music. Others slowed down the injury replay, adding captions like, "This is why football is brutal." It wasn't just a sports story, it was a cultural flashpoint. Inside the Dolphins' locker room, the mood was somber. Players described it as a funeral vibe. Jalen Waddle told reporters, "That's my brother. We go as he goes. It's hard to even think about football right now." Head coach Mike McDaniel admitted the team would need to completely reimagine their offense. Defensive leaders spoke about dedicating the rest of the season to Hill's recovery. Even opponents weighed in. Jets cornerback Sauce Gardner tweeted, "Hate to see it. Much respect to Tyreek. Prayers up." The sense across the league was clear. This wasn't just another injury. This was the NFL losing one of its most electrifying stars. For kids who grew up imitating Hill's touchdown peace sign, the injury was a gut punch. Videos surfaced of young fans crying as they watched the cart scene live. Parents shared posts about explaining to their children that their hero might not play again. At local schools in Miami, teachers reported kids wearing Hill jerseys the next day, scribbling #PrayForTyreek on notebooks. It was a reminder that stars like Hill aren't just athletes. They're icons who inspire communities, and when they fall, the impact ripples through homes far beyond the stadium.
These absolutely have the potential to be career-ending, right? Because you're dealing with more than just a single ligament. You're dealing with multiple ligaments. You're dealing with the potential for nerve injury, for vascular injury.
Tyreek Hill's injury isn't the first to shock the NFL, and sadly, it won't be the last. From Joe Theismann's shattered leg in 1985 to Alex Smith's near amputation in 2018 to Nick Chubb's collapse in 2023, football history is scarred with moments that remind us of the brutal cost of this game. Every generation of football has its "where were you when" an injury. For millions of fans, Hill's night against the Jets is that moment. On November 18th, 1985, during Monday Night Football, Washington quarterback Joe Theismann dropped back against the Giants when Lawrence Taylor sacked him from behind. The collision snapped both bones in Theismann's lower leg. The broadcast froze. Millions watched as players waved frantically for trainers, much like they did for Hill 40 years later. Taylor, usually a ruthless competitor, was visibly shaken, kneeling near Theismann in shock. That night ended Theismann's career instantly. He never played again, but it also changed how America viewed football, not just as entertainment, but as a sport where lives and livelihoods could end in an instant. Fast forward to 2018. 2018. Washington quarterback Alex Smith suffered a gruesome compound fracture when he was sacked by the Texans. The break was so severe that bone pierced skin. An infection nearly cost him his leg. Smith endured 17 surgeries, battled sepsis, and at one point, doctors suggested amputation. Yet 2 years later, he made an improbable return, suiting up for Washington in 2020. His comeback was hailed as one of the greatest in sports history, earning him the NFL Comeback Player of the Year award. Smith's story shows the other side of tragedy: resilience, inspiration, and the human will to fight back. For Tyreek Hill, this is the hope that his story could one day join the pantheon of miraculous returns. The NFL thrives on speed and violence, hits that shake stadiums, tackles that echo through broadcasts. It's part of the appeal. Tyreek Hill himself built a career on using his speed to break defenses, but the same violence that entertains also destroys careers. Fans love the highlight reels, but when injuries like Hill's happen, the same audience gasps, covers their mouths, and asks, is it worth it? This paradox has defined football for decades, and Hill's injury has reignited that debate. One of the most haunting parts of these injuries is the media's role. Broadcasters are torn, show the replay and risk traumatizing millions, or avoid it and leave fans in suspense. In Hill's case, ESPN showed the replay once, then shifted to wide shots, commentators lowering their voices, filling silence with words like gruesome and uncomfortable. The viral spread on social media, however, had no such filter. Slow motion clips, zoomed in screenshots, reaction memes. The internet made Hill's injury unavoidable. It's the 21st century reality. Injuries aren't just medical events. They're viral content, consumed in real time by millions. Behind every viral clip is a human being. Tyreek Hill is a father, a son, a teammate. That's why the image of his mother kissing his forehead on the field hit so hard. It wasn't just football. It was family, humanity, and love in the face of fear. Thiesman had his teammates rushing to his side. Smith had his wife and kids in hospital rooms. Chubb had his teammates praying over him. And Hill had his mother on the sideline, the most raw human reminder of what these injuries really mean. Before the injury, Tyreek Hill was on track to cement himself as one of the greatest wide receivers in NFL history. 8 straight Pro Bowls, Super Bowl rings, a chance at 12,000 career yards. Now everything hangs in the balance. If he returns diminished, will his legacy be the fastest man in football, or what could have been? This injury doesn't just impact the Dolphins, it impacts NFL history itself. So where does Tyreek Hill's injury sit in this lineage? It's not as instantly career-ending as Thiesman, it's not as life-threatening as Smith, but it's as shocking and viral as Chubb. It's the defining gruesome injury moment of the 2025 NFL season, maybe the decade. And for Hill, it may define his legacy. If he never returns, this becomes his Thiesman moment. A brilliant career ended in a flash. If he returns, it becomes his Alex Smith moment, an inspirational story of fighting back against impossible odds. The story isn't finished. We don't yet know if Hill will rise again, or if his wave to the crowd was a farewell. But we do know this: when the Cheetah fell, he joined a long, painful history of warriors whose bodies gave everything for the game they loved. The night Hill went down, the NFL changed, the Dolphins season changed, and perhaps football itself changed. Because when the Cheetah fell, the entire football world stopped running. And no matter what comes next, Tyreek Hill's name will forever be etched into the history of the NFL, not just for his speed, but for the night that speed was taken away, and for whatever comes after. Thanks for watching. Check out other cards on the screen.